Good morning, mathematicians. Okay, today we are working on lesson 4. Lesson 4. We are going to take our scatter plots and create equations for them. Okay, so it says, in many situations, the equation of a trend line can be useful in making predictions. Okay, so today we're going to be working on making equations. And remember, equations have an equal sign. The equation of a trend line can be useful in making predictions, especially when predicting a value that cannot be seen on a graph. Review the steps for writing equations of linear graphs below. Now we're going to take what we've learned at the beginning of Math 1A and use it for our scatter plots. Writing trend line equations. First of all, choose any 2 points on the trend line and set up a ratio of rise over run to find the slope of the line, or M. Now what I want to clarify is it says choose any 2 points on the line, on the trend line. Don't choose your data points. You want to choose points on the line, and I'll show you when we get to number 1. The second step, look at the y-axis to find the y-intercept of the line, or B. Now remember, the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And again, I'll show you when we do one. Once you have those 2 pieces of information, once you have the slope and the y-intercept, then you can write the equation in slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b. That should sound familiar. Now I'm actually going to highlight that because I want to make sure when I'm writing my equations it needs to look just like this. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our first one. Number 1. I notice a few things. What do you notice about our line? Which direction is it going? So remember, when we take a look at a scatter plot, we always start on the y-axis and we look at what the line is doing from the line axis. We read to the right. So I notice that my line is starting here. It's starting at 8. That's an interesting spot. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that. And then I notice over time it is going downward. Okay, so what is my first step up here? Choose any 2 points on the trend line to set up the ratio of rise over run. Okay, now when they say pick points, they don't want you to pick data points. They want you to pick points that cross that graph, like at an intersection. So like there's a good point because you notice that the line is crossing the intersection of my coordinate plane. Another good spot is this one right here. Notice that it follows, or it crosses right there at that intersection. And the reason I want those is so that I can make my little triangles and count my rise over my run. Now technically I could use this points too, just so I can show you. Let's take a look at rise over run. So I'm going to put rise over run. Now rise means how much do I go up or down to get to the next point. Notice that if I start here and I want to get to my second point, I need to go down 1 spot. So instead of rising up, I'm rising down. So that's a -1. Then I'm going to run. I'm going to put -1. So I'm going to now run to this line. I have to run 1, 2, 3. Since I'm running 3, it is -1/3. Okay, now step 2. Step 2 tells me to find the y-intercept. Oh, that is the spot I've already circled. This is where my point is starting. It is starting at 8. So I'm going to take those 2 pieces of information and write my equation in y equals mx plus b format. So y equals mx plus b is what we want. Y stays y equals, now remember, m is my slope. M is my -1/3. So I'm going to write -1/3. I always keep x. And then my b is a +8. So I'm going to put +8. So what I want you to notice is that my y stayed y, my x stayed x, but my m and b became values, -1/3 and 8. So that now is my equation. Let's try another one. Okay, first I'm going to start with my y-axis and see what's happening. I notice that my line is starting here. And I notice if I read it from left to right, my line over time is going up. So that means we have a positive slope. Okay, so that's, let's see, step 1, find 2 points on the trend line. So I'm going to find 2 points. Now remember, I want the line to be crossing at intersections. So I'm going to pick this one right here. And, oh, it's crossing an intersection right there. Notice it's actually crossing quite a few. Notice it makes a pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and find my rise over my run. What do I need to do to get from one point to the second point? So I'm going to go up 1, and then I'm going to run 2. So that is my rise over my run. Let's go ahead and write that down. I'm going to rise 1 and then run 2. So my slope is 1/2. Okay, it is time to write our equation. Y equals mx plus b. Remember, y is going to stay y, x is going to stay x, and we need to plug in our values for m and b. Y. Now m was slope, remember that's 1/2. X plus b. Now remember, b was our y-intercept, and it was that number we found at the beginning. Let's go back over here. Where does our line start? It starts at 60. There we go. And that is my equation. And if you notice, I'm going to highlight it. It looks just like the equation that we have in our instructions. Okay, you go ahead and try number 3. If you need to, pause the video and then turn it back on so I can show you the answer. Okay, now that you have your equation, let's see what you have. Let's find our equation. Do you have y equals -1x plus 9? Notice that our y-intercept is 9. And we are dropping 1, running 1, dropping 1, running 1. So you can write it as -1x. You could also have written, so rise could have been written, rise over run could have been written different ways. You could have had -1 over 1. You could have had just -1. Or you could have even written the equation as y equals -x plus 9. So kind of 3 different ways you could have written that. Okay, now take these notes and go ahead and start practicing on number 4. And go ahead and go to the back side, and then we will catch up with you in class.